ICBVI, empowering blind and visually impaired Idahoans to achieve self-fulfillment by providing quality vocational rehabilitation and independent living services since 1967. Adjusting to visual changes.
Larry, how you doing today?
Doing good, Steve.
Good. Doing great, thanks. So I've got a series of different questions for you. We'll just kind of jump right into it. How did you lose your vision?
Okay, I really never lost my vision. My visual condition occurred at birth or during the development in the womb. My mother had either a fever or some kind of an illness, which then affected the fetus, which then affected my vision. So I'm congenital, which means all my life I've been this way.
Did you experience any grief or loss or feelings of loss because of the vision, or is it just something you've always known?
No, I never really felt, so to say, such as a person that has lost their vision during their lifetime. I've never really experienced grief or loss under that same aspect, but I do have a lot of grief sometimes internally because of when I was growing up, kids would make a lot of fun of me. Adults didn't know how to deal with me, how to work with me. One of my biggest losses I believe I felt in my lifetime is I was not allowed to serve my country. I was not allowed to go into the military. So if that would have happened, I would have experienced the Vietnam War, and I think I would have had much more fulfillment as a man if I could have done that.
And that might be the answer. What has been the hardest thing for you to adapt to? Was it that you were talking about, or?
The hardest thing, yes, the hardest thing for me to adapt to is people and their opinions and the way they work with me. To me, I feel like I'm just like everybody else, and really I am. But the hardest thing for me to adapt to is people coming in and trying to say, well, you can't do this, or here, let me do this for you. I'm a very independent person. I do things my way, and I don't like people getting in my way if I don't need them there. So that's the hardest thing for me to adapt to. I don't like help, and I don't like pity.
I can definitely understand that. How did losing your vision affect your family members, if it did affect them?
Ooh, that's a good story. That was a major influence as to where I am today. My mother and grandmother and my siblings all took it in stride. It affected them, but it really didn't really create an issue of any kind. It was my father, and the rest, God bless his soul, he took it personally. My dad was a hard rock miner. He was a man's man. He didn't show any feelings, and he expected me to carry my weight as my siblings had to. And he never demonstrated that he understood. He always kept everything in. And so he expected me to do the same as my brother, but then when I wanted to do the same as my brother, like have a driver's license, he squelched that. He squelched me playing sports. He did a lot of things that he was afraid that it would hurt me, but he would never explain to me. And in the long run, then I felt my dad did not love me or care for me, so that created years and years of animosity to where it didn't with my other family members. And so my dad was the biggest factor in me growing up and being influenced by family opinion.
With your whole life experiencing vision loss, did you try to cope with your vision loss, do you think, by yourself? Did you reach out to others? Was there a transformation from one to another? How did you deal with that part of it?
Well, probably for the first 30 years of my life, I did it on my own. I grew up under a certain set of parameters, and I tried to guide my life like that. I tried to be like my siblings, my friends, my peers, get out and do everything. In my mind, I just had to wear a pair of Coke bottles to see things. I was no different than anybody else. Well, at the time that this transformation started occurring, I was writing software for a major government entity for the state of Idaho, and somehow somebody directed the Commission for the Blind to my work, and that was I think the catalyst of the transformation to where I am today. Little by little, I started seeing what my situation was, what my condition is, who I really truly am. And in the ensuing years, I got more heavily involved with the Commission for the Blind, and I was sent to their training center, the ATC, and that really opened up my vision, my eyesight to who I really was, which made a major impact on my life as a blind person, which made me understand my father, where my father was coming from, and it just made a total difference. So, in answer to your question, the first part of my life, I dealt with it as a sighted person. The last portion of my life, I'm dealing with it as a blind person because I have the training and the education now.
Was there a value that you found in both, or one that you feel more than the other?
I see a value in both. I learned to live independently. I learned to deal and cope with obstacles. When a roadblock came up, somebody told me I couldn't do it. I said, yeah, well, watch this. I had a hard time in school. I couldn't see the blackboards in college. I went through college, but I didn't do anywhere as good as I wanted to. But in the ensuing years, when I learned more about my blindness, I started understanding my abilities, who I am. And so without going to school, I have an equivalence as a master's in the IT arena. And so living as an independent person, being self-reliant, was very important. But then after I started learning my capabilities, my abilities, my limitations was also extremely important, which led me into the arena of helping others with visual impairments, especially low vision. So it gave me the insight to be an assistant or a mentor for others.
Being that you're so involved in the world of IT, is there assistive technology that you use to help you in that arena?
Yes, IT involves hardware, firmware, and software. So I have assistive technology, which is not a high-level technology, but it's called a bioptic. It's another pair of glasses that acts as a telescope, which lets me look down onto the hardware that I'm working with to help me see it. And then I have another pair that helps me see long distance. When I'm using a computer at my desk, I use what's known as Zoom text or screen reader magnifier. And it allows me to blow up the screen to change the parameters of the screen so I know what I'm doing. It also has a screen reader, so when I'm conducting lengthy emails or in-depth reports, it'll read back to me, which saves my vision and strain and stress. And so I can accurately compose a report or a document.
Are there other aids and appliances that you use in your daily life to assist you maybe outside of that IT arena as well?
There are a number of things, yes. One of them is when I'm not working with IT and I'm using a computer, I use keystrokes that are taught to me that I've learned, which makes me a more proficient and effective user of a computer. I'm old school and I don't like telephone technology a lot, the new cells, but I'm learning to use the navigation systems, maps, Google Maps, things like that to help me see where I need to go, my destination, so I can go from point A to point B safely.
And then, are you a bioptic driver? Do you use bioptics for driving?
Yes.
How does that work?
At first, when I first started that, it was very hard, very difficult. I was very self-conscious. I was worried about what the guy in the car next to me was thinking, you know. It takes some training, some practice to get used to the bioptics as you're driving. But now I'm more more comfortable with them, and I really recommend them to people that are very skeptical of using them. They're a very powerful tool.
And this question's a little bit different for you because you've dealt with blindness or vision loss your whole life. But how has your perception about vision loss changed throughout your life, or has it, to where you from early on to where you're at now?
Well, when I was a youngster, I just thought that wearing my glasses, wearing Coke bottles was just the way life was. I lived life like everybody else, so I was just basically everybody else with Coke bottles. But as life progressed, and I got introduced to different agencies, different aspects of life, my attitude has started to change to where now I know I'm a visually impaired person. I'm functionally blind, and I need to recognize that in order to be a successful person.
Any advice that you would give to anyone who has experienced vision loss or blindness recently?
Yes, there is. Vision loss is hard to deal with. A lot of arenas that a person, it goes through their head: independence, self-reliability, social perceptions, things like that. What I would recommend is the person try to work with it as best as they can, and then try to talk with other people, get involved with basically the Commission for the Blind. Get in with other people that have visual impairments. When I was growing up, I was the only person that had an eye condition, which is totally false. So there are others out in this world, and I think that's the healthiest and best thing a person could do. Is get with another person, get with a group, contact the Commission for the Blind, and get a handle on it and work with it. Because ultimately you can be what you were, and you can be even better.
Fantastic. And there are definitely other groups out there, like peer support groups that are throughout the state, National Federation of the Blind, of course, the Commission for the Blind.
Correct. Yep.
Thank you very much, Larry. Really appreciate your thoughts.
You're welcome.
We hope you enjoyed this video. For more information, see our website at www.icbvi.idaho.gov or contact our office at 208 334 3220.